Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we are talking with Erica Rooney. Erica is on a mission to help people break out of their sticky floors and bust through the glass ceiling to live a life filled with purpose, passion, and peace. She is the host of the podcast From Now to Next, which explores limiting beliefs that keep people trapped in their sticky floors. Erica helps others redefine success and chase after big and bold dreams. As a top culture expert, Erica invigorates and educates organizations through change, driving a positive experience for employees. She guides executives through the process of change to lead to massive success. And Erica is breaking the glass ceiling so that all women can bust through it. So Erica, we're glad to have you here today.
Woo, thank you. That was a mouthful, I know. Super pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I'm also regretting having Karan read through the intro as she's over there.
Sounds so good, though. You guys get my throaty, sexy, phlegmy voice today.
It's the radio voice. I like it.
So, yeah, we're happy to have you here today, Erica, to chat with us. We're looking forward to where this conversation goes, and we'd love to have you start us off by leading us on your pirate journey. What led you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I think a big piece of my pirate journey starts where I am now, which is being a chief people officer, but being a super busy wife and mom and woman who does all the things. I have my own business where I have my own podcast. I do executive coaching and coach consulting. So I've got a lot of stuff going on. And I've always been someone who is focused on growth mindset and just, hitting achievements, hitting milestones, doing the most. But it wasn't until I got to this place that I really found that I want to be a champion for women, and I want to be what I like to call a gender equality crusader. And my why has always been to help people. And that's how I got into HR. It was a long-winded road that was started in health and fitness where I was helping people hit the glass ceiling there. So bumped over to HR, quickly climbed the corporate ladder there. I'm in the C-suite, which is great. And now I'm also in a position of power where I can drive change more than I could when I was an individual contributor. So all of that being said, it wasn't until I was really, quote unquote, doing the most and doing all the things where I was really noticing how different it was for women in the workplace, especially working moms, and everything that we were having to shoulder. All of the expectations that we were supposed to be meeting, all of the things we were supposed to be doing. Were we thin enough? Were we working out enough? Were we doing enough with the PTA? Were we doing enough in our career? Was dinner on the table at 6 o'clock? All of these things. And I was like, we got to change this. This is not working for me. And so that's kind of what set me on my pirate journey.
As someone that worked in childcare corporate life and doesn't have kids of my own, but has worked corporate life as a wife, I'm I get I would see memes that were like, you can have, there's this list of all these things that women should be doing. You can get 2 of those things or 3 of those things. It's about all I can manage. So yeah, I understand and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, it's wild, and as someone who has always wanted to be able to balance it all, I love being a career woman. I love having a career. I love learning more and doing more, but I also love being a mom and I love being involved in my kids' lives. But then all that other, like you said, the shoulds start to pile on. I should be working out 30 minutes a day. I should be meal planning. I should be making sure we're all getting to the doctor's appointments and going to the basketball games and the baseball games and the dance. It was just so much. And then let's be honest too, I'm also going after my husband. Did you do your physical yet? Did you do this yet? And so it were it was all this that was just sitting on my shoulders, and I was trying my best to do it all. And I was failing, obviously, because like you just said, you can do two of those things. And I was that person though, that I didn't want to say that I couldn't do it all. Right. I didn't want to ask for help. I wanted to be able to do all of this and put this perfect picture out there. Right. And you mentioned sticky floors. Like that was a big sticky floor of mine, was this layer of perfectionism and this fear of failure that I didn't want anybody to see, because I felt it made me vulnerable and I felt it made me a bit of a failure. So I don't know, that was a lot.
Well, and so how did you push past that? Like what happened to change all that? Was just something like a pivotal moment where you had a realization, or like how has that evolved for you?
I think it really evolved for me, and this is a little bit twofold, so you'll have to bear with me, but I think it evolved for me where the stress kept piling on and on and on, and COVID hit, which we all know is a whole different world for everybody. The science and the data and the research is out there about how it impacted women in the workforce, homeschooling, all of this. And not unlike a lot of people, I started to drink way too much wine, and that just adds on more stress, And it got to this point where I had this realization that number one, I couldn't do it all. And number two, I was drinking too much wine. So I gave up drinking and got into therapy, started talking more with my spouse and my husband, and just saying like, I need help. I can't do it all. Like I got to this breaking point where it was just too much. And you get to that point and everything comes crashing down. I was barely keeping this pitiful little version of myself present in all these areas. And so I really went deep into the self-care by giving up drinking, by meeting with a therapist, and by forcing myself to communicate with my husband about the help that I needed him to give and what I needed to give up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that was such just talking about the drinking part. I think that was such a common response during COVID. I mean, I found that we fell into that same trap. It was like you're working from home. All of a sudden it's like, well, I guess it's happy hour. And because what else are you going to do? And I know we chose this like unhealthy way to kind of deal with the stress. And I think our culture too really kind of glorifies that, like, oh, mommy needs a big cup of her mommy juice. And like it's so interesting how, yeah, like I said, it's kind of glorified in our culture. This whole drinking is like just something that is so acceptable for ways to deal with our
the
stress.
only drug in America that you don't have to justify taking. And I don't say that to be on like this soapbox for drinking, because there are plenty of people out there who can have a glass of wine once a month and call it a day. Yeah. Right. But you're right. What else was there to do back then? We weren't going anywhere. We weren't driving anywhere. We had nothing to do, And so I was one of those people that was what I turned to, right? We drank to celebrate, we drank to grieve. And it is such an ingrained piece of our society that there really never is a reason not to drink. I mean, we drink at baby showers, for God's sake. The woman is pregnant. She can't even drink, but this is what we're doing. And so yeah, I fell down that trap, and then you want to talk about stress, right? Like I was super stressed during COVID. I had a new executive job. I was doing all the things. So I absolutely deserved that wine at the end of the night. And I am very much a science-based person. Like I don't like to say things like, I can't do this or I don't do that. Like I'm a science-based person. So for me, what really helped me through that journey was looking at the science of it and understanding that like alcohol was doing its job. It was numbing me. That is what it is intended to do. It was used as an anesthetic back in the day to knock people out when they were doing surgery. So it was doing its job. But when you look at what it does to the chemicals in your brain, how it impacts your sleep, how it impacts your health, like I realized that the reasons I was going to that's the cause of it. So for me, it really became about science and how it was impacting my brain and my health. And that was a very pivotal moment for me. And it made it easier to stop. It really made it easier to stop, because I like to think of myself as a health conscious person. But then back then, I wasn't so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. for those listeners that don't yet know, I'm in Canada. And Health Canada just came out with new drinking guidelines. And I can't remember what it was previously, but it dropped significantly that it's 2 glasses, 2 servings of alcohol a week is now like the maximum dosage that they're saying is like, I don't know, is okay. And I think it was like 7 or something, and it's changed drastically. And like you said, it's because like the science is catching up, and like we're seeing not to like harp on alcohol, but it was just really interesting that you brought it up. And because it's such a common thing that I see from so many women. But yeah, it's just really interesting how the science is finally catching up, and they're like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I hadn't heard of those new standards yet, but yeah, it used to be. And if you look at online and stuff, it's like you can have 7 servings per week in the US, and they're like, but not all in one sitting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you mean 1 a day, right? And like we were going like, okay, so 1 a day, I'll pour my glass, you know, and you've all seen those jokes where the glasses like fit the whole bottle of wine. Like that's what people were doing.
Here's my one. Well, and there's that, there's been a saying I've seen going around too, is like alcohol's the one drug that, you actually have to justify not using around other people because it's that socially, embedded. So yeah, to make a change to say like, hey, I don't want to drink, oftentimes because it is so embedded and people are going to ask, why aren't you drinking? So the shifts now that are happening, I think that people being more aware of what it's doing to our bodies, it's becoming less of a thing that you have to explain. But yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the sober curious movement of people who are more like, I kind of want to explore that side of things. It's really great. And it's wonderful to see because yeah, before, if you weren't drinking, you were either pregnant or you had a problem. And either way, none of that's your business, right? Like, so there's also that, but yeah, it's exciting to see this new kind of sober curious revolution and kind of how that may shift in the coming years.
Yeah. So then on, which it's great. And I want to know too more about like what you're doing now, with your job with the HR and, helping women. But will you explain the sticky floors? Like when you say sticky floors, what do you mean by that? And then how are you helping people get past those?
Yeah. So sticky floors are those limiting beliefs or behaviors that are within your realm of control. And I kind of harped in on this because the World Economic Forum says we will not hit equal pay for another 132 years if we progress at the rate we are currently moving at. So I'm going to be gone. My kids are going to be gone. Like we're not going to be around for another 132 years. So I've got 2 choices now. I either give up and say, well, it is what it is, or I do what I can do to move the needle and then improve myself, right? So those sticky floors are the limiting beliefs and the behaviors that we can control. So they can be imposter syndrome. It could be perfectionism, which we talked about, a little bit earlier. It can be the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, worrying about what other people will think. And then it can be toxic relationships, being in, a relationship where maybe your spouse doesn't support you, or your partner, or your friend, or a colleague. And then also toxic behaviors such as having too much wine. So that is what I'm calling sticky floors. It's the things that are within our scope of control that we can move the needle on the most so that we can bust through the glass ceiling.
So like other than the alcohol, what changes did you make in that, like living that hustle and grind culture to where you are today? Because I think that also gets really glorified. You got to be busy, you got to do the things, you got to do all the things. So how have you changed and left that kind of grind culture behind?
I love a hustle. Don't get me wrong. I've always been a hustler. I've worked since I was like 10 years old. So I believe in that hustle mentality to a point. Like I am very focused on health and wellness. So I also believe in rest, and I believe in getting my 8 hours a day. But what I love to work with women on, especially, is telling them that they can do all of the things. They really can, but they get to define what those things are. So for example, I've got 2 kids, they're 4 and 7, so very young. I work a full-time C-level job. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a fitness fanatic, all these things, right? But I don't go to every flag football game on Saturday for 2 hours because I don't really want to. It doesn't light me up. I go to the important ones for my kid, but I don't go to all of them, and he's got a Valentine's Day party coming up. I didn't sign up to go to that. I didn't sign up to bring anything, right? I'm going to let all the other moms do that. And that's okay. So you don't have to check every single box, and you don't have to do all the things, right? You don't have to cook dinner every night. That's like that one of those shoulds that we talked about. So for me, I really had to take a step back and prioritize, where did I want to spend my time? And then I also had to evaluate, for me, where I had unrealistic expectations. So as someone who has a fitness background, I was a personal trainer for years. I had this mindset that I had to do 30 minutes of cardio every single day, followed by weight training. And if I didn't have that, like, it wasn't worth the workout. Number one, that's a lot of time working out. Number two, for what reason? Like 20 minutes is good. 15 minutes is good. Why do I feel like I have to have this whole hour? So I really kind of evaluated, and I changed and shifted my priorities. And it's something that I still focus and work on, but I've really kind of dialed it back. So instead of having this unrealistic expectation that I'm going to do an hour of working out every day, I work with myself, and I'm like, I'm going to do my best to get some movement in every day. Doesn't matter if it's walking, running, weightlifting, I'm going to do some movement every day. And I'm not going to let 2 days go by where I haven't moved. So like, if I don't do something intentional Saturday, Sunday, I'm dang sure going to do it on Monday. And then that's when it becomes more of a priority. So I really level set what those priorities are. I'm still doing it all. I am still doing it all, but it is on a much more manageable and realistic level.
But on that too, we were talking before this that February is month of love, and you're talking about self-love. So in learning the whole how to balance, do the things and balance, where does self-love play into that as well?
Yeah. And I love this conversation because as women, I speak from my own experience. Like, I used to look at this like self-love as self-care, right? So I had to do all of the things. And again, I'm adding on to my plate. I should be working out. I should be taking my vitamins. I should be, right? And what I was loving about myself was just not even being acknowledged, because I was so busy doing all the things. So for me, self-love is really about acknowledging the wins, and even like the tiniest and smallest of wins. Now, this is an area that I'm working on. I told you guys I have this journal called the F Yeah Journal, and it's all about writing down my wins. I've had this journal for 3 months. It's got 1 entry, but I'm going to be better at it this month. I'm going to really try to focus on them, because it's about sometimes just recognizing that, like, you had a very busy day today, and that was awesome. Go you. Like be proud of yourself. Because, and think about it, for anyone here who does have kids or a close friend or someone that they love dearly, like when they do something amazing, that feeling of how proud you are of them, you're just like, oh, like I can't even describe it. Have that feeling for yourself, and like take a minute to recognize that, like, you did something amazing. Don't just brush past it and move on to the next thing. Like, celebrate your damn self.
Yeah, we love celebrating wins over here. It's important because it's one of those things where making yourself proud is something that we've been taught not to do, because pride. Well, I grew up hearing pride goes before the fall, so you shouldn't be prideful, but making yourself proud is so important, because feeling pride for others feels good. Why should you hide that for yourself? And yeah, celebrating yourself is huge.
And two things. First of all, reminder to our listeners that Kristen also has a Celebrating Wins journal.
This is
So
true.
go buy it. Okay.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Right here.
Not so shameless plug for Kristen. And the other thing is, I feel like as women, we're doubly taught not to celebrate our wins. I feel like men have an easier time kind of celebrating and bragging about their accomplishments. And we're just kind of taught to, and I'll give you an example. When I was young, I was in martial arts, and I would win in tournaments and stuff. And I remember I was told as soon as that medal like goes over my head, and I thanked like whoever gave it to it, it came off and I put it away. Whereas I just remember guys walking around with their medals on their chests and like flaunting them. And I'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to like make anyone feel bad or brag or anything like that. So I would always just put it in my, my little gym bag and carry on with life. And it definitely did not celebrate those wins. They were tucked away and not really, you got back to work training for the next one. But yeah, do you notice, like, do you have that experience too about that women are especially not taught to celebrate them?
Oh, 100%. And I've actually done a ton of research on it because I find it so fascinating that, and being a mom that has a little boy and a little girl too, like I even find it way more intriguing that we put little boys in sports where they are intended to be competitive, right? And win and go for it. And we teach them to ask what they want, and if you get a no, who cares? Ask them again. And then we teach little girls to do these more like communal sports, like ballet classes and dance classes. And, even like volleyball, where you have a team aspect, right? So little girls are taught to play nice and, sit quietly and all of those things. So when you look at the contrast between how little boys are raised and what we praise them on too, right? So like little girls, we say things like, oh, you're so pretty, and that's such a beautiful dress, and look how cute you are. Little boys were like, wow, you're so good at baseball, and like, you ran so fast. And we're always talking about what they can do. That absolutely bleeds into how we see ourselves and how we interact as adults. And it's detrimental, like in the corporate workspace, right? Because men get out there and they ask for what they want. They go all in and they get a no, that's fine. They'll find another way to get a yes. And they go after it. Whereas women were like, well, I want it to be fair for everybody. So I'm not going to ask for the 20%. I'm just going to, it's fine. And the man's up in there. He's like, I need 30% in that corner office, So we are like setting ourselves back. That's why there's such a pay gap as well. It's like we are not going in and asking for what we want because we are living off of what we have been taught to believe as children. So absolutely 100% agree with that, and I see it in my children as I watch other people interact with them and how they praise my daughter and what they praise her for versus what they praise my son for. So it's just cultural and society, and that's what's going to take years to change.
And even though I worked a few different corporate jobs, they were all more female based because they were within the teaching field, so more nurturing, and they were low paying jobs. And I'm curious too, because even when I had some coworkers that were like, hey, we want to be paid more, they more or less got shamed by our female boss for even asking for it. And we weren't supposed to share like what we were being paid so that there wouldn't be a competition. And I'm curious because even if there were males working, there weren't very many of them. What it looks like too in a field, in an area where there would be more of that, like even just being able to see the competition and be like, hey, I noticed over here, because I have worked in such female driven fields. But now that you're saying that too, they're low paying fields. They are not ones that are going to get you a 6-figure check, even if you work there for a long time. So
did you know that female dominant fields, to your point, are lower paying than the fields that men typically enter. However, when men start to enter said female-driven fields, the pay goes up. So for example, data entry tech used to be seen as like a very female-centered job. So back before all this like major technology and Apple and the Google and the Facebook and all that came about, women were working with coding and computers, and it was seen as a very low level job. And then men entered the tech force, and now look at them tech salaries. They are six figures and beyond. You know what I mean? So it's actually, there is data behind that to show that female dominated industries are lower paying, but as soon as men enter that, it goes up. And if it's flipped, where it is a male dominant industry, gets flooded by females, the salaries go down. It's embarrassing, to say the least, but
it is that because of the being willing to ask. Is there like behind that data, do they know, is that because men are going in and saying, I want to be paid more, or is it?
That's probably a piece of it. I mean, there's got to be a ton of different aspects, right? I mean, it's shown that women don't want to, like when women go into a negotiation, we go in because we want both of us to win. We want us to both walk away happy, feel like it's fair. Whereas men are like, I'm going in for myself. I'm going to get what I'm worth. I'm going to boom, let's roll, right? And negotiation is like fun for them. Like, how much can I get? It's a game. Whereas we are very much more communal in nature of like, make it nice. So it's a totally different way of approaching it.
I feel called out here.
I
like,
mean,
that's totally me.
Yeah, my entire time in the corporate world, I never once asked for a raise. Like, I thought about asking for a raise, but I was like, oh, I can't go in there and ask for a raise. I'll just wait to see if they offer one. And once in a while, you get a new job and you get a little bump up. And I never negotiated. I never asked for a raise. And you're right. I remember hearing stories of like colleagues, or even when I became in like that supervisory and manager role, like when, you know, the worst of my male employees just, I had the gall to come in and ask for so much more money. And I'm like, but you totally suck. But they had no problem coming in and asking for more money. And it's interesting that like, yeah, never once did I ever.
I work with a lot of, women. When I do executive coaching, I only work with women. It's just a preference of mine. But I do have an all-female team right now, and HR is a female-driven empire. Okay, but I intentionally put my team members in uncomfortable positions when it comes to talking about their raises, because I want them to go through the uncomfortable feelings of asking for it, and in a way that is productive in asking for it, so that it's comfortable space. It's a very safe. When they go somewhere else, they have that experience of already of like, okay, this is what it feels like to ask for an increase, to ask for a promotion, you know, and this is how I need to do it. And I was so excited the other day because someone on my team had this whole business plan put together about what she did for the company, you know, years of experience, all the things she does outside of her role, and then what the next level role would be like with a promotion and an increase, and like all the reasons why she deserved it. And I was like, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, that's huge too, because it's not something that we as women are used to doing. And also, yes, like I said, I feel called out because I like, even working on building my own business, I'm like, if somebody wants to work with me, I want everybody to win. I'm like, here, you tell me what you want, instead of being willing to step up and say like, hey, I'm working on this. If you want to work with me, this is what that's going to look like. I'm very much so. I want everybody to win, and it's a tricky thing to move past. How are you helping, other than like what you just said? Like, how else are you helping women to move past that and through that?
So a lot of it depends on what their quote unquote sticky floor is, right? Whether it's confidence or feelings of self-worth and stuff. But to kind of harp on your example of owning your own business and stuff, like this is super important for women entrepreneurs, because when COVID hit, women had to leave the workplace, and in droves. So actually the amount of women who have started their own business since the pandemic is like well above men who started their own business. But the venture capitalist funds are all going to men, right? So like, it's still, here we are. It's hard to get ahead, you know? But one example that I use about women and starting their own business is like, what are you worth? What are your skills worth, right? Because we undervalue what we bring to the table so much, right? And I will use an example that I think is pretty tangible, is like, as someone who has 15 years of experience in HR, I can look at your resume and tell you immediately what you need to change to get, you know, someone to pull your resume out of a job pile. Like, I know what numbers you're missing. I know what you should add, what you should take away. It'll take me 10 minutes, right? So when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, Erica, can you review my resume? It's like, yeah, no problem. It'll take me like 5 minutes. I gotcha. People charge $350 for a resume review. Why am I giving it away for free because it takes me 10 minutes? It is a $350 an hour review. Like, come on. But it's because, again, we try to make it nice. We underestimate what we're worth and the value of our time. Like, yeah, that might be 10 minutes, Erica, but it's worth $350. Like, go get your money, you know? So when I'm working with my women who are business owners, I really try to get them to map out, like, line item, what they are doing, what they are bringing to the table. So for example, I'm also executive coach, 15 years of HR experience, give it a dollar amount, right? Resume review, give it a dollar amount. Content review for LinkedIn, give it a dollar amount. Add up all that and make your offer, right? Because a lot of times we struggle when it comes to this, here's my offer, because it's like, well, you know, oh, that's too much. Okay, well, I'll give you 10% off. It's fine. Like, no, get your money, get what you're worth.
It's funny. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. The hardest thing for me as now an entrepreneur, part of my job, the pricing is already set, and that's easy. But developing new programs, which I've done a number of times, coming up with the pricing for my programs, that is the hardest thing for me, because I'm always like, I don't know, like, what do you think you want to pay?
Yeah, I don't want to pay you anything. I know, right? Great, you know.
But yeah, that is the hardest thing, is like pricing out. And I remember, so part of what I offer is nutrition coaching, and I remember setting my prices and doing a coaching program for nutrition coaches and hearing what other people were charging. I'm like, oh shit. Wow. I'm like, no wonder I'm not making any money doing this job, when that, like, people are charging like double what I am for a month for the same service. So yeah, that was the hardest part, is coming up with like those values of what my services were actually worth.
Yeah, putting that big number down on paper can be really intimidating, you know? And I actually worked with a money coach one time. Like, that is what she called herself, a money coach. And I loved it. But she, putting together packages, was like, you need to create 3 levels of packages. Like, put it down, start with like the biggest, boldest package you can think of, things you don't even have in your arsenal right now, right? Like an annual retreat. You don't even do annual retreats right now. That's fine. Annual retreat, free swag, you know, immediate access to you on a Tuesday, whatever it is, biggest, best package, and put a number down, what feels good, you know? And when you like write it all down and you're doing it like this, you don't have time to think. And you're like, oh, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000, whatever. She's like, great. Now take out a few things, make a mid-level package, and take out a few things and make a beginner level package. And like, you go through these steps and you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, you know, but then the hard part is you actually have to ask for it.
That's again, coming from a field too of not being paid much. I've been doing some like side babysitting or tutoring, ever since I quit my corporate childcare job. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting paid more than I was in childcare. And then I also look at it and I'm like, I think teenagers are actually asking for more than I am in this. And I'm very qualified. Like,
I'm an adult
who's had years of experience working with kids, that your child is very safe with me and we're going to have fun. And I think teenagers are asking for more than I am. So yeah, it's it's an interesting thing trying to figure out those numbers. And then also confidently asking like, yes, this is what I'm worth.
And I would love to state that like confidence, you're not born with confidence.
Mm-mm.
Confidence comes to you through repetition. Just like working out and getting stronger, if you do the reps, the confidence will come, so you're going to be uncomfortable. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about uncomfortable conversation is having someone in at your low ball offer and then being like, now I'm raising my prices 20%. That's uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, we have those conversations because that's what we're worth, and you just got to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so what is the social rebellion that you've started with your work?
A lot of it is forcing these women to get out of all of the shoulds, right? To use a term we've been using in this session is like all of those shoulds. Those constraints are ones that we have put on ourselves. It's not necessarily for us. It's not intended for us. We're all different. We don't fit into that cookie cutter box, nor do we need to. And it's working with them to bring down those guardrails that they've put up for themselves so that they can do the things that bring them joy and bring them happiness and light them up, right? If you are not somebody that likes to cook dinner and have it on the table every day at 6:00, don't freaking do it, right? If you're not somebody that wants to go to the PTA meetings, don't do it, And then if you have all of those things that must be done, like all the kid doctor's appointments and whatnot, have the conversation with your spouse so that you can equally split those opportunities, right? There's a big practice that I do with a lot of the women who feel that they shoulder the burden is sit down with your spouse. Don't write down what you do and what he does. Write down everything that has to be done for the house, right? For the life, house, finances, laundry, dishes, write it all down. And then talk about who takes what and make it an even split, because we go through these things with the natural progression. And a lot of times they just fall on the women, and we never take a moment to reevaluate in our lives. Like for me and my husband, when we went from living in 2 different houses to 1 house, when we went from being, 2 different finances to 1 joint finance when we got married, when we were married to then having children, we never stopped and reevaluated who was doing what and where the burden fell. And so I just kept taking on more and more and more and more. And when we finally stopped and looked at it, it was like, all right, I'm going to need your help on some of this. So that social rebellion is a really big piece of like, stop just being on this trains of the shoulds and what society expects of you, and do what works for you.
Oh, Karan's mic. Karan, I think your mic is on the other one. We'll give her a second. He likes to switch on us.
Am I back?
Yes.
I think I'm back. Awesome. I read a really good book about the gender data gap. And they were really talking about the amount of unpaid care labor that women have to put in versus men. Yes, Invisible Women. That book. So good.
Exactly what you were talking about.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. And a conversation. Go read that book. Everybody, man, woman, child. Go read The Invisible Woman. It was eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, it's all about the data gap that doesn't exist because we default to the man.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, from how airbags are constructed. Did you ever seen like an average size woman female crash dummy or a pregnant crash dummy? Like, no, you just see a man crash dummy. So everything from how the cars are designed and tested for safety to how drugs are pushed through the FDA, right? So there was a whole section in there on chemotherapy and how they're tested in mainly men, right? Sometimes they do women now because we're getting it a little bit, but men's and women's bodies are very different, right? From a fat ratio, women have more fat than men. Okay. I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, but I imagine that the different tissues in our body would do different things with different drugs. And they don't evaluate that, and I actually had a really interesting conversation with my mom, who is a cancer nurse, about this. And she's like, Erica, if we did that, it would never get pushed through the FDA. Like we would not have any drugs because it would take too long. And I was like, I get it, but then why don't we just test on women instead? You know, like, why has it got to be the man? And she's like, I mean, that's a point.
Yeah, we're 50% of the population, and we're treated as the anomaly.
Anomaly, yes.
Wow, that all of a sudden became a word I can't say.
But absolutely read that book. It's eye-opening. If you are not upset in some way, shape, or form about the patriarchy, you will be after you read that book.
I think I was talking about that book with a friend of mine, and I said, oh, if you want to be infuriated, read this
if
book.
you want to get mad, just go read that book.
You haven't been mad in a while and you're feeling like it's a good thing.
Right. That is an amazing read. And I would also say another great read is this book called Burnout. It is The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And they talk all about how women, they based on American women just feel like they have to do all the things, and that we get into this stress cycle that we can't break out of because we never complete the stress cycle. But it goes into a lot of basically how we were raised, kind of what we were talking about earlier, you know, in the session of like, how do we break that cycle? But anyway, that's enough of my library for the day.
And that's a fair question. How do we break that cycle? Because it is a cycle. Like even looking at the toys that girls and versus boys they're given, like girls are given dolls, and cooking sets, kitchens, and boys are given trucks and things to smash and guns. And it's a cycle that is very, very early on put into.
A piece of it is recognizing it, right? Like y'all can't see me right now, but pink play kitchen right behind me. Who do you think that's for? Not my 7-year-old son, you know? And so we very much, I am a gender equality crusader. I feed into this society. My daughter's room is pink. My son's room is blue, you know, like we do these things. So it's, we have to be part of the solution, and part of it is recognizing it, right? And so very early on, when my son would pick up a doll, I would let him have it. My daughter's got soccer balls, all these things, you know? So I try to correct some of the things I have, like the play kitchen, you know, but we have to recognize that we all do it.
Well, it's funny because I'm out here in Portland too, where sometimes it's just whatever kids are. I mean, there's still the gender things, but there's also sometimes the kids are just whatever, like they're thrown in the hand-me-downs of whoever from whatever. Yeah.
I'm not buying new snow pants. You wear these. They're pink. You're fine.
Right. So there's a little less of that out here, but still like, yeah, it's very much a thing. And awareness does help.
Absolutely.
And we love talking about good trouble, creating good trouble, causing good trouble. So what is that, when you hear that, what does it mean to you, and how are you creating good trouble?
I am creating good trouble by challenging male leaders. And I really ask them uncomfortable questions. You know, if they say something to me that I don't think they would have said to a man, I'll call them on it. You know, if they treat me in a different way because I'm a woman, I will ask about it. I will bring it up. And that's not something I used to do. I used to be very, not insecure about it, but I didn't know how to handle those types of situations, you know? And so I'm very much more in a position where I feel secure and confident, and I can call them on it in a productive way, right? Because most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time, but at least my experience is they haven't been comments or, you know, actions that have been intended to be harmful, but they do need to be noted and corrected, you know? So that is one way. And then the other way that I'm doing it is I am really intentionally trying to teach my daughter how to handle situations that she is uncomfortable in. And again, she's only 4, so we have a lot of time to do this. But I remember as a middle schooler, as a teenager, I didn't know how to handle certain comments or how to deflect things that I wasn't comfortable with, right? And very basic. Like if somebody's like, hey, can I have your phone number? I didn't know how to say no, because I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. So working with my daughter and teaching her on how to have more authority and handle those situations where she is not comfortable.
I'm curious what that looks like for you teaching her those. So since she is 4, it's early. What kinds of things are you teaching her? How are you helping her with setting those boundaries?
Yeah. So right now it's a lot of like, if you don't want to hug somebody or high five somebody, you don't have to. If you don't want to go to a friend's birthday party, you don't have to. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to, right? Because we teach kids all like, go give grandma a hug. Like, she might not want to give grandma a hug right now, right? She hasn't seen one of these grandmas in a year. She doesn't know her, so it's like just giving her that authority over her own body and like what she does with it. I'm very fortunate that she's a very assertive little girl. So she like has fallen right in line so far.
Good.
But I do that with both of my kids.
And yeah, that whole boundaries with body, kids aren't really taught that with the whole hugging. I was out to eat with my husband once. I got so mad watching this. There was a family, it was around the holidays, and they were hanging outside saying bye. And I could tell that some of the family, I think the family was visiting. So some of them were from the area, and the ones that were visiting, like there was an uncle who'd been drinking, who's looking at his little niece, and he's saying to her, come on, give me a hug. And she's looking at him going, no, I don't want to. And he's like, come on, you need to do this. This is going to be your last chance. Like he more or less was shaming her into coming and giving him a hug. And I was so mad because I'm looking at my husband, like trying to quietly be like, look at what he's teaching her right now, that you have to obey your uncle. Like, don't obey your body and yourself, but obey me, your uncle, who you don't know, because I say so.
Yeah. And in this exact case, like this uncle was putting his needs before like his own needs before the needs of a child. Right.
Yeah.
Again, probably not intentionally, but that's what he's doing, and even with my 4-year-old, they have emotions, and they're allowed to process their emotions. And so part of it is like, I can bounce back from a lot of the things that she's mad at me for like, she's mad at me because I made her sit in her booster seat, like I'm the worst mom ever. I let her go through those emotions because we have to learn how to go through them and handle them and deal with people. So it's like, I just let her kind of do her own little queen thing.
Yeah. So necessary for kids of both genders to know these things, and especially for girls, like, because having that autonomy over even knowing, like, I can say no to this, is so important.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to
as we grow. Exactly. Me too. I'll have to keep y'all updated.
Yeah. love to see what she's up to like 10 years from now. So since we have talked about celebrating wins, and you said you get to be better at that, what wins are you celebrating?
Oh gosh. I actually put this on my Instagram the other day. Like I hit a certain number of downloads with my podcast. So I was super proud about that. Nice. I had a big group in my Facebook group that just completed a no excess challenge where we were trying to rid ourselves of all the excess crap in our lives. And we just had a lot of fun doing it. So celebrating that. And then they really wanted to do another type of challenge. So we're starting a mindset challenge in February, and just super pumped to, like, that's a win for me that I get to work with these women and do fun things with them and grow with them. So that's a big win for me.
Yay. So with that too, tell us what you're up to. And also you have an ebook online too. So do you want to share about your ebook?
I've got a lot of stuff. Yes. Yeah. So please use all the things that I put out there. I'm a content queen when it comes to those things, but I have a LinkedIn course. If you are an entrepreneur or in the corporate world, it's a great quick course for you to do on how you can level up your LinkedIn and utilize content to work for you so that you can create your personal brand. Because regardless of what your business is, people want to buy from you. It's not necessarily the product or the service that you are offering, because there's probably a million people out there who sell whatever it is you're selling. For me, there's a million executive coaches out there, but people want to know you. So it's all about that personal brand. And the ebook really pairs up nicely with that free course. It kind of takes it to the next level. But yeah, so you can go there. And then I've got, like I said, the Facebook challenge, which is a mindset reset challenge going on right there. I would love to have you there. And then, my podcast, I got that going on twice a week, every week. If you enjoyed hearing this, wherever you listen to it, you can go find it there. But yeah, if you want to talk, hit me up on LinkedIn. Like, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn and talking to them. And if you tell me, hey, I heard you on this podcast, like, I would love it.
Yeah, we chatted through LinkedIn. So
yeah,
yeah,
I love the LinkedIn. It's my favorite social media.
I'm getting used to it. My brother told me way back when I was in college, he's like, you need to be on LinkedIn. I was like, why? I didn't even know what it was then.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to be on it. And so it's this thing I've had forever, but I'm like, I don't know how to use it.
Well, and it's morphed so much. Like, I mean, all of them have, right? But it is morphed and changed so much that it really is an amazing way to connect with people that you need in your circle. So, and like, hey, if I want to know somebody who works at a certain industry or a job, like, now I can go find it and it's not weird,
Yeah. Good old LinkedIn. So yeah, you have your Facebook group, LinkedIn. Any other places that our listeners can go to find out more about you, or just to
I mean, I'm on every social platform. I've even embarrassingly gone down the TikTok drain. So if you want to watch me make a fool out of myself, sometimes you can go there, but those are going to be the main places.
Okay. So yeah, look for Erica Rooney.
That's right.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about today or anything you want to ask us?
I would say, I mean, because this is always my ask, is like, what are you two doing to drive gender equality? You're two powerful women. You've got a platform for speaking. How are you driving gender equality?
It's a great question. Since I work with kids, Ron's off mute now, but since I work with kids, I'll say, like, my main thing would be back to the helping kids realize, and in particular girls, realizing, well, with girls too, like realizing you have a voice, but realizing you have autonomy over your body. Like, these are big things for me. I was a kid who didn't talk. I didn't even find my voice really truly till a few years ago. So, I had a few students too, when I was teaching, that were a lot like me when I was little, and to be able to give them permission to use their voice when they wanted, instead of when other people wanted, like I was taught. I got to see them bloom and grow in ways that I wish I could have done when I was their age. So for me, I would say it's really starting at the young, starting with kids and helping them to realize, like, I am powerful, I am strong, I have a voice, and I can be what I want to be. So
that's awesome.
That's what I'd say.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then I get them when they're a little older.
You just pass them off.
Yeah, pass them off to me. I'm a coach, fitness and nutrition, and I specialize in women's health. So about 90% of my clients are women, and we work together for building strong bodies and navigating hormones and all of the other delightful things that come with being in a female body that most of the mainstream health and fitness don't address. And they think that we're all the same. So I have been working with mainly perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. And I'm branching into including pregnant postpartum clients as well.
Oh, awesome.
So just trying to get all facets, stages of a women's health kind of journey. I did some teen camps at the gym as well, and kind of focusing on those to try and teach young women how to have strong bodies, look after them properly, and to focus more on what they body can do versus what they look like. And I focus on that with all of my clients, which is so much pressure just to be like thin and perfect, and then right now we've got to have a big butt, right now we have to have a little butt, and,
I can't keep up.
Can't keep up. I don't know what size any of my body proportions are supposed to be right now. But yeah, really taking the focus away on what the body looks like so that we can
focus on health as well, all of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, I love it. And I love hearing what other people are doing, because I do believe that people are doing good work for that all over the world. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's a great question. We should all be asking ourselves that question.
Amen. I'm here for it.
Cool. Well, how would you recommend our listeners going about starting their own pirate life?
Gosh, ask yourself if you're being courageous. Like, that is always my go-to. It is what I rely on. Being courageous is a core value of mine. And I find that I'm playing small is also when I'm not being courageous. So be courageous, do big and bold things, right? Be disruptive. Ask why. That's a big one. Always ask why. Why are we doing this? For whatever reason, and make sure it's the right one. So that would be my advice to living a pirate life.
Good advice. Also, that asking why is very important.
Yes.
Well, thank you for talking with us today. We had so much fun.
Oh, I love it. And you guys are awesome to talk with. I love talking all things like gender equality and women empowerment. So it was a super fun combo for me too.